something that's sticking out to me too, though, is how I don't feel like that's the world I was raised in with media.
Yeah.
Like I was raised in, I've had lots of conversations with other team members and just other people about how the way media was handled when I was growing up is there was the good list and there was the bad list.
Oh, yeah.
Luckily, Star Wars was actually kind of in the good list.
Yeah.
It was like,
Though it got a little edgy
it was-
there
yeah, it was like there was a stretch
PG-13. What?
Yeah, I don't know about this anymore. It might be off the list.
Yeah.
But there was this core of Star Wars that, or just like media, where there's just like arbitrary bars and rules, and there were lots of things that probably wouldn't be like that, quote unquote, that bad.
Right.
But because there was this perception of like, well, we're a Christian family and like we can't have people knowing we're watching, Spider-Man. Like,
oh, no.
yeah, because they said the D word or whatever. So how would you coach or encourage other parents or family members who maybe feel like we want to be able to watch more stuff. We want to not be so afraid of media, especially in our world where there's like 800 things coming out every other day.
Right.
What would you offer to them where they feel comfortable and confident to have these conversations, but to not feel like maybe that pull or that parental instinct to force them to see something? Like kind of like you said, making sure that they're not like, you're not like, did you... Because he's like Jesus, and they're like, he's a stormtrooper, like,
right?
I don't.
Yeah. I think So I think for Sarah and I, the approach is to not take it so seriously.
Sure.
Okay. So when we show something heavy to our kids, our first conversation with them is always like, "How did that make you feel?" Right? We're worried. We're not worried. We're concerned about them as a person because sometimes, I mean, we've both experienced this. We watch something or read something, listen to something, it makes you feel things that you maybe don't know how to deal with. And again, a 9 and 7-year-old kid, they don't understand their emotions. So I would say the first thing is like care about your kid, and if they are afraid or if they are feeling anxious or whatever. Like that's got to be like your first stop, right? But don't be afraid of the fact that they're feeling anxious or afraid, because like what disservice do we do to our children if we don't teach them how to cope with that stuff? Like, yeah, that was a scary scene, but it wasn't real. Like, could there be a Darth Maul showing up at your doorstep? Probably not.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. Really cool if you did,
Yeah.
but probably not.
Yeah.
So like kind of helping them learn that. But so like that's kind of like how we respond to like kind of that part of it. But the other part of it is like having, I don't know, like not caring that much. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, because like, yes, we are a Christian family and we want to make sure that our kids grow up with good Christian values. But if they grow up with Christian values or that are just them being afraid of what happens outside of the church walls, then how are they going to really live in a real world? Right. And so when we haven't really started down the Marvel pathway only because of time, not because of like being afraid of like the content or whatever.
Hulk's a little too.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, some of the like more recent stuff, it's like that scared me. Like I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. But like Spider-Man, Iron Man, it's just like that's like a deep dive, right?
Yep.
It's a whole other world that like I know my kids would just be like, what?
Yeah.
So that's not even out of sheltering. That's just out of my own time commitment.
Yeah. We would. Believe me.
So we choose Marvel or Star Wars. Anyways, but I think being really honest with your kids, being like, this is what it taught me. I don't know, man. I just think that like maybe Christian parents take things too seriously.
Better not say that too loud, Nick. People might get upset. No,
do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're just gonna go into it. Because this is like why I said this is the fun part of the unplanned podcast.
Yeah.
This is where it goes. I have wondered this for a really long time, which is we are in this weird spot in the modern world where Christian responses to things have usually been either around three things. There's obviously a broad spectrum, but just
Right.
kind of dumbing it down for the sake
Yeah.
of like talking about media.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to watch it. Don't watch it. It's evil.
Right.
And it's
with no
arbitrary.
explanation.
With no explanation.
Just don't do it.
Like I have a Time magazine thing over here because
Yeah.
they're doing like a Pokemon series, and they
Yeah.
actually talk about like Pokemon Mania and like
Yeah.
how parents were like, it's demonic because all the kids are, you know.
I grew up that way. I wasn't allowed to have
That's-
Pokemon. I still don't know why to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was evil.
Yeah.
Nick, it was evil. It
Yeah.
was so clear.
Bad.
How did you not know? So there's that.
Yeah.
There's also the like, you know, kind of like how Paul talks about, you know, like, well, there's freedom in Christ. And it's like,
Right.
oh yeah, there's freedom. So just like watch Game of Thrones and watch this and like watch
Right.
whatever. And then it's
Right.
like the extreme where we don't think about the ramifications of certain things.
Right.
And then I think the third one is the healthiest is like a discernment to be like, and you've actually said this a
Yeah.
couple times. I've picked up where you've been like, knowing our kids, we blank, or like
Right.
them as a person blank. It's
Right.
not just like, well, he's a 10-year-old, so this is how we treat 10-year-olds. It's like,
Right.
this is Sean, so we're going to treat Sean
Right.
the way Sean needs to be treated.
Knowing your kids is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Walk me through what that process looks like. And
Sure.
that sounds like a really dumb, like high-level question,
No, it's
but
fine.
I think what I'm processing through is I'm imagining all the parents who feel probably afraid because you know like again I've talked to my dad about his dad and I've talked to other parents about their
Yeah.
kids and just like being a
Yeah.
teacher and seeing dynamics
yeah,
and you're
I
like
do know.
ooh
Yeah.
interesting. And I think there's this lost art in the Christian sphere of like how to be discerning with raising your kids
Yeah.
and especially how to be sacrificial as a parent to understand what it takes to know your kid well enough to make those discerning choices. Like
Yeah.
discernment is not a, read the next like Max Lucado devotional and then you like know how to do it.
Yeah.
It's,
It'd be nice if it was that way.
oh, what?
It would be nice if it was that
I
way.
thought you were like,
Yeah.
no, that's what
That's
I did.
exactly what I do.
That's
You're
exactly
like,
what I
what?
did.
No, it would be nice if it was just like read a book and you know how to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes like spending time with your kid, which a lot of parents don't love to do because kids are hard.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. There are some days I go home and I pick up my kids from school and I'm just like, I'm already tired. And you just got in the car. Yeah. Spending time with your kid, I think that's really important. Asking them difficult questions and just being honest with them. I think when it comes to media, like for Sarah and I, it's like, we watched this thing. Game of Thrones, let's say that. We watched first episode. Like, no. Like, we felt gross about this. If we feel gross about watching it, what it did to our soul, we can't let our kid watch this, right? So I think that's really like high level. That's really it's like, but at the same time, sometimes there are things that like we watch and we're like, that was difficult to watch, but it's important. There are important messages.
Sure.
That like, I don't know how I would be able to convey this better to our kids.
Yeah.
And so at some point when they're old enough or those conversations are coming up, this is the right time to do it. I think being discerning with your kids' media intake means that you are also not afraid of making mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? I think a lot of parents that I've talked to that I interact with are like, well, if I show my kid this thing, I don't know. Think of like a movie, like,
Well, even thinking Star Wars, they're
Or
going to
is
start
there-
beating each other with sticks as
yeah,
lightsabers.
right.
And, like,
I mean, they're going to
whatever.
do that anyway. So without Star Wars, that's just the natural bent.
Yeah.
But like, if you're thinking like, if you, I don't know. I guess just don't be afraid of your kids.
Yeah. No.
Don't be afraid of
walk
making
through that.
mistakes.
Yeah.
Learn together with them.
Sure.
But also, yeah, I think you have to be like really thoughtful about like media not being a babysitter, which I think that's that like side of the parenting. It's just like, I don't really care. Just go watch, listen, take in whatever you want. But we don't do that with our like anything else in our kids' life, or we shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't just let my kids eat like Doritos for every meal. They would love that.
Yeah.
But then they would be like sick.
Yeah.
Why would we do that with media? But at the same time, we can't be like also no media. Because if we're that way, then they don't even have language to talk to people. right?
Yeah.
Like how do we as modern Americans really communicate? It's through our shared media experiences. As good or bad as that may be, it's just the way we
it's
like
the reality.
When I sit down with my best friends, it's like, oh, did you see SNL last night? Yeah, it was really bad, which it was really horrible this weekend. And like that's what we're talking about. Like it's maybe the surface level, but it's how we're talking. And if my kids have no idea what Star Wars is or what, who the Hulk is or whatever, they're just like that weird kid that no one wants to talk to.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah. How do you think we